Every house, every king, and every battle has its own truth. But there are stories older than crowns, darker than the night, and more dangerous than any blade. They were never written in books. They were whispered to fire, to the trees, and to the dead gods. And today, we dare to uncover one of them. The sea below Casterly Rock roared like an angry god, its white foam crashing against the cliffs where the fortress stood, a golden lion carved from the bones of the earth itself. The sun dipped low behind the western waves, casting long, burnished shadows that made the rock gleam as though it had swallowed fire. Princess Olenna Targaryen watched from the deck of her ship as the towers rose higher with every swell. The banners of House Lannister fluttered proudly in the wind. A crimson field, a golden lion, roaring for all to see. Her silver hair, braided in the Valyrian style, caught the dying light and shimmered faintly, a ghost of the dragons that had once ruled the world. She felt the eyes of the sailors upon her, their awe mixed with unease. Few men from Westeros had ever seen a Targaryen this far west, and fewer still were glad to carry one into the lion's den. Her escort, Sir Jeremy Veleron, a knight sworn to the crown, stepped beside her. "Will be received by Lord Tywin himself," he said quietly, though his tone carried the caution of a man speaking near an open flame. "Best to remember, Princess, lions smile with their teeth." Olenna gave him a small, knowing smile. "And dragons burn with their tongues," she replied. The ship drew close to the harbor below Lannisport, and the sight that met her eyes was one of wealth and power. Docks crowded with merchant cogs and gilded galleys, golden domes gleaming on the hills, streets bustling with traders from across the narrow sea. The scent of salt and smoke mingled with perfume and freshly tanned leather. Even the poorest beggars wore rings. It was a far cry from the silent, shadowed halls of King's Landing, where madness whispered from the Iron Throne like a sickness. When the ship's plank dropped, Olenna descended with royal grace, her white cloak billowing softly in the sea breeze. Waiting to greet her was Sir Kevan Lannister, brother to the Lord of Casterly Rock. His bow was courteous, but not warm. "Princess Olenna," he said, "you honor our house with your presence. My brother awaits you at the Rock. I am to escort you there." "I am grateful for his welcome," she replied, though her heart told her it was not welcome but inspection that awaited her. Their ride to the Rock wound through the heart of Lannisport. Everywhere, Olenna saw the wealth of House Lannister on display, goldsmiths and armorsmiths, jewelers and bakers calling out their wares. Children waved lion banners as her horse passed, though a few older men bowed only stiffly. The Targaryens were not beloved in the west. The road grew steeper as they approached the fortress itself, carved from the colossal rock that gave the Lannisters their name. Gates of red steel and golden bronze opened to reveal a courtyard vast enough for 100 knights to drill in, and upon the high steps stood Lord Tywin Lannister, his face carved in stern majesty, his green eyes cold as polished emeralds. Olenna dismounted, meeting his gaze. "Your Grace?" Tywin said, inclining his head just enough to honor her bloodline, but no more. "Welcome to Casterly Rock." "My lord," she answered, "I come bearing my uncle's goodwill and the friendship of the crown." Tywin's expression did not change. "Then let us hope both are worth keeping." Inside the great hall, the golden tapestries told tales of Lannister triumphs, lions devouring stags, wolves, and dragons alike. Olenna's eyes lingered on one that showed Lan the Clever, the trickster who had stolen the rock from the Casterlys. "A thief in golden robes," she murmured, and Tywin's brow arched faintly, though he said nothing. A feast was laid for her that night, roasted boar with honeyed apples, rich wine from the arbor, sweet custards and bread studded with gold flakes. The Lannisters spared no expense when it came to appearances, but beneath the laughter and the music, Olenna sensed unease. Every eye that met hers was measuring, questioning, weighing her purpose. When the hall grew quieter and the minstrel's songs faded, Tywin rose and addressed her directly. "You are young to bear such a mission," he said. "Does the king trust you so deeply, or is it that he trusts no one else?" Olenna kept her composure. "My uncle believes in the wisdom of youth," she said, "and in the eyes of those not yet clouded by old grudges." At that, a flicker of something passed through Tywin's gaze, amusement, perhaps, or warning. Later that night, Olenna wandered to her chambers, the corridors lined with torches casting dancing shadows upon the stone. She found her rooms lavish beyond need: silken sheets, gold-trimmed mirrors, a balcony overlooking the endless sea. Yet, she felt no comfort. From below, faint voices drifted through the halls, two men speaking in hushed tones. She crept closer, pressing her ear to the cool stone. "The girl's here on the Mad King's orders," one whispered. "He means to test us." "Then we shall pass the test," said the other. "And when the time comes, the lion will not kneel to the dragon." The voices faded into silence, but Olenna's heart pounded like a drum. She looked out toward the Black Sea, where the wind howled like some ancient beast. So this was the game her uncle had sent her into, a den of lions with teeth sharpened for war. She turned from the window, her silver hair catching the moonlight like strands of flame. "Then let them bare their claws," she whispered. "A lamb I may seem, but dragons do not fear lions." And far below, in the dark beneath Casterly Rock, something stirred, a shadow that neither lion nor dragon would command. The game of deceit had begun. Morning came with a blaze of red and gold upon the sea. The rock caught the light like a living thing, its towers glimmering as though dipped in fire. Olenna stood upon her balcony, watching gulls circle far below, their cries sharp in the wind. She had slept little. Her dreams had been full of whispers and lions with silver eyes. A servant brought her breakfast, honeyed bread, figs, and a cup of strong wine. But her thoughts were elsewhere. The voices she had overheard the night before still haunted her. "The lion will not kneel to the dragon." Words treasonous enough to see a man burned, yet she could not tell who had spoken them, nor how deep the descent ran. Before noon, Sir Keevan came to escort her through the halls. "My lord brother wishes you to see our minds," he said. "The heart of the rock. He believes you will find them enlightening." Olenna inclined her head. "I would be honored." They descended through winding stairways, past armories and storerooms, into the earth itself. The air grew cooler, tinged with the scent of stone and metal. Torchlight flickered upon veins of gold that glimmered like frozen sunlight. "Every coin in the Seven Kingdoms knows the touch of Lannister gold," Sir Kevan said with quiet pride. "The rock's wealth runs deep, even dragons may envy it." "Gold cannot hatch eggs," Olenna murmured. He smiled faintly. "True, but it can buy swords and silence." In the deepest chamber, she found Tywin waiting. He stood before a great wall of raw ore, his gloved hands clasped behind his back. Around him, miners worked in silence, their hammers ringing like solemn bells. "Impressive, is it not?" he said as she approached. "The veins grow richer every year. Gold obeys no king but the one who digs it." "Then perhaps gold is the true ruler of Westeros," she said softly. Tywin turned to her, his expression unreadable. Perhaps. Tell me, princess, what does your uncle truly seek in sending you here? Olenya met his gaze without flinching. Peace, she said simply, and loyalty. Tywin's lips curved, not in amusement but in some cold calculation. Peace is a coin easily spent. Loyalty costs more. The king's disposition has many lords uneasy. His temper, his judgments, his fires. She heard the unspoken words. His madness. My uncle's burdens are heavy, she said carefully. The Iron Throne is not kind to those who sit upon it. No, Tywin said, but neither is it kind to those who serve it. He looked at her then, truly looked, not at her beauty or her name, but as one measures an opponent across a game board. You are young, yet you carry yourself with the poise of a queen. Are you to be won, I wonder? The question caught her off guard. I am no heir, she said quickly, only a loyal servant of House Targaryen. Ah, said Tywin, then you are indeed rare among your kin. Before she could answer, a shout echoed from down the tunnel. A miner, pale-faced, running toward them. My lord, there's been an accident. The shaft collapsed. 3 men dead. Tywin's eyes narrowed. Show me. They followed swiftly, the sound of boots striking stone. The air grew thick with dust. Torches flared as they entered the ruined shaft, where broken beams jutted like ribs from the earth. Bodies lay beneath the rubble, their limbs twisted. But what drew Tywin's gaze, and Olenya's, was the object half buried among the stones. A small, scorched cask marked with the seal of the Alchemists' Guild. Wildfire, Tywin said darkly. Olenya's blood ran cold. That cannot be. The guild keeps its stores in King's Landing, under the king's direct watch. Yet here it lies, beneath my rock. Tywin's voice was low, dangerous. Tell me, princess, do you come bearing peace or flame? I had no part in this, she said, stepping back. If someone means to sow mistrust between us, it is not I. Tywin studied her face, searching for deceit. Then he turned to his brother. Seal this place. Tell no one. I will not have panic spread through the mines. As they ascended once more, the silence between them grew heavy. At the upper halls, Tywin paused. Princess, I will not accuse you without proof. But understand this. If the crown plays games with wildfire beneath my rock, I will not sit idle. Tell your uncle that lions remember every insult. Olenya bowed, though anger burned in her chest. And dragons remember every betrayal. That night, her chamber felt smaller, the walls pressing in. She paced before the fire, her thoughts racing. Wildfire beneath the rock. It was madness, or worse, manipulation. If Eris truly ordered such a thing, he was beyond saving. But what if someone else had placed it there to drive the two houses apart? She needed answers. As the moon climbed high, she donned a dark cloak and slipped into the corridors. The rock was quiet at night. Even the guard's steps echoed faintly, swallowed by the stone. She made her way toward the lower halls, where the servants whispered and the truth often hid. Turning a corner, she froze. Ahead, a figure stood cloaked in shadow. Tall, broad-shouldered, a sword at his hip. Princess, said a voice she recognized, you walk dangerous paths at night. It was Ser Jaime Lannister, golden-haired and barely a man grown, yet already handsome enough to make maids blush and knights jealous. His smile was half curious, half wary. Ser Jaime, she said. I might say the same. He leaned against the wall, his eyes glinting in torchlight. I could ask what business brings a dragon princess prowling through our tunnels after midnight. Should I raise the alarm? That depends, she said evenly. Do you trust your father's eyes more than your own? He studied her, then laughed quietly. You speak like a riddle. Perhaps I am one. Jaime stepped closer. Then tell me this riddle's answer. She met his gaze. Someone means to pit lion against dragon, and neither will win. For a moment, the hall was silent, save for the hum of distant waves. Jaime's expression shifted, from amusement to thoughtfulness. If that is true, he said softly, then we're both prey, not hunters. Then help me find the truth, she whispered. He hesitated, then nodded once. Meet me tomorrow. The old sept by the western wall. At dawn. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Princess, if this path leads to ruin, what then? Elenya looked back, her silver hair shimmering like moonlight. Then we shall walk through ruin and see who still stands when the fire dies. And as she vanished into the shadows, Jaime watched her go, a strange unease stirring in his heart, as if some great storm had begun to rise over Casterly Rock, and he, for all his pride and golden blood, could not stop it. The dawn came shrouded in mist, soft and pale upon the western sea. Bells tolled faintly from Lannisport below, their echoes lost among the gulls. Elenya wrapped herself in a gray cloak and made her way through the sleeping corridors, her footsteps light upon the cold stone. The rock felt different at dawn, less a fortress, more a living thing, breathing in silence. She passed no guards as she descended toward the western wall. Only the distant drip of water and the sigh of the wind kept her company. When she reached the small, weathered sept, the air was heavy with the scent of old incense and damp stone. Candles burned low before the statues of the Seven, their flames trembling. Jaime Lannister was already there, kneeling before the warrior's statue, his golden hair catching the faint light like spun fire. He rose when she entered, turning toward her with that easy, reckless grace that marked his blood. I was beginning to think you'd changed your mind, he said quietly. I seldom change it, Elenya replied, but I choose carefully when to use it. A flicker of amusement crossed his face. You sound like my father. I should hope not, she said, smiling faintly. He stepped closer. Then tell me, Princess, what truth do you seek from me this morning? Elenya drew a small piece of parchment from her sleeve and held it out. This was found near the collapsed shaft. The ink is smudged, but the seal is clear, the hand of the king. Jaime's eyes widened slightly. Then the wildfire was placed here under the king's own authority, she finished. But the question is why? Was it a warning to your house, or a snare set for mine? Jaime turned the parchment over in his hands. My father will rage when he learns this. Then we must find proof before he does, she said. I need to know how the cask came to the rock, and who carried it. Jaime studied her face, weighing her words. You're asking me to spy on my own blood. I'm asking you to save them, she answered. If the king means harm, your family stands in danger, and if someone else planted it, then your father's wrath will strike the wrong foe. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, with a slow nod, he tucked the parchment into his cloak. Very well. I'll speak to the quartermaster. He knows every ship that docks and every crate that's carried inside these walls. Elenya's relief was quiet, hidden behind a mask of calm. And I shall visit the Meister. There may be records of shipments that do not match their manifests. Jaime smiled slightly. We make quite the pair, a lion cub and a dragonling playing at foxes. Let us hope we play better than we are hunted, she said. They parted then, she through the eastern hall, he through the tunnels beneath the wall. The sept fell silent once more, its candles flickering in the mist. By midday, the rock had stirred fully awake. Courtiers and knights moved through its corridors like threads of a golden tapestry. Olenna kept her head bowed as she passed them, her cloak's hood drawn close. In the rookery, she found Maester Krylin, a lean, sharp-eyed man with fingers stained by ink and years of secrets. "My Lady Targaryen," he greeted with a thin smile. "An unexpected honor. How may this old bird serve you?" "I seek knowledge of the shipments arriving from King's Landing," she said, "particularly those sealed under the crown's mark." The maester's brow furrowed. "Such records are sensitive, my lady." Olenna reached into her sleeve and withdrew a small silver clasp shaped like a dragon's claw, a token of her station. "The king himself sent me," she said evenly. "I trust his will still carries weight here?" Krylin inclined his head. "Of course, princess. Please, wait here." He vanished into his chambers, and the sound of parchment rustled behind the door. Minutes stretched into silence, broken only by the cooing of ravens. When at last he returned, he held a single scroll. 3 months passed. A crate marked for the Alchemists' Guild arrived aboard a royal galley. It was listed as tools for stonework. It was delivered. He paused, scanning the note, directly to the lower vaults upon Lord Tywin's instruction. Olenna's heart quickened. Tywin himself? So it would seem, the Maester said, though his eyes were wary. But I assure you, my lady, Lord Tywin would never knowingly endanger his own house. Perhaps not knowingly, she murmured, but others might act in his name. She thanked him and left, her mind racing. If the shipment bore the king's seal and Tywin's order, then someone between them had twisted the command, a serpent hidden between dragon and lion. That evening, as dusk bled across the sky, Jaime came to her chambers. His armor gleamed from practice, his hair damp with sweat. He shut the door behind him quickly. "The quartermaster confirmed it," he said. A crate arrived from the capital bearing the king's crest. It was unloaded by a crewman named Lauren Pike, who vanished the next day. No coin, no belongings, nothing. As if he'd been swallowed by the sea. Or silenced, Olenna said grimly. Jaime nodded. And there's more. The ship's manifest listed 10 crates. Only 9 reached the docks. 1 went missing. He met her eyes. Or was hidden. Olenna moved to the window, the night wind stirring her silver hair. This goes deeper than I feared. If wildfire is being moved in secret, then someone means to use it. Against whom? Against us all, she said. A knock came suddenly at the door. Both froze. "Princess," called a voice, Sir Keevan's, stern and low. "My lord brother requests your presence in the great hall. At once." Jaime stepped back, his hand on his sword. "Go, I'll stay in the shadows." Olenna nodded, composed herself, and opened the door. The great hall was dimly lit, torches casting long shadows upon the crimson banners. Tywin stood before the hearth, a scroll in his hand, his expression carved from stone. Beside him, his wife Joanna watched in silence, her golden hair crowned with pearls. "Princess," Tywin said coldly, "a raven has come from King's Landing. The king asks why my mines burn." Olenna's breath caught. Burn. Tywin's eyes burned brighter than any fire. An explosion in the lower shafts. Wildfire. 5 men dead. "I swear to you, I knew nothing." He raised a hand, silencing her. "Whether you knew or not is no longer the question. The king accuses me of sabotage. He claims I hide his weapons. And now, I must decide whether to answer with truth or blood." A silence heavy as iron filled the hall. Elenya looked up, meeting his gaze. Then let me find the hand that lit the flame, my lord. If I fail, you may call me liar. But if I succeed, perhaps peace may yet live between lion and dragon. Tywin studied her for a long, tense moment. Then at last he said, "You have until dawn. After that, the rock answers fire with fire." She bowed, her heart pounding. "Then dawn shall bring truth, or ashes." As she turned to leave, she caught a glimpse of Jaime in the shadows beyond the door, his face pale, his eyes hard with resolve. The game had changed. No longer were they merely hunters. They were racing against fire itself. The bells of Casterly Rock tolled thrice before dawn, low and mournful, echoing through the caverns of stone like the groan of a dying beast. Elenya had not slept. She stood by her chamber window, watching the sky pale from black to ash gray, the horizon veiled in sea mist. Somewhere below, miners were still digging through the wreckage of the lower shafts, searching for bodies or clues. A servant brought word that Lord Tywin had sealed the tunnels, his patience burned to embers. Within a day, he meant to summon his bannermen and prepare for what he called the Crown's betrayal. If she failed now, the realm would bleed. When Jaime arrived, he looked as though he had not slept either. His eyes were shadowed, his jaw set. "My father's sending riders to the west," he said in a low voice. "He claims it's precaution, but I know what that means. He means to call his banners if he smells treachery." "Then we must find the traitor before his scent reaches the throne," Elenya said, fastening her cloak. "Where was the explosion?" "In the third shaft," he replied. "The one we saw yesterday. The guards claim the blast began near a sealed chamber. None of them had entered before." Elenya's eyes narrowed. "Then that's where we begin." They descended through the winding passages of the rock, their torches cutting pale gold through the dark. The deeper they went, the more the air grew thick and metallic. Ash drifted in thin clouds. The stench of burnt flesh lingered faintly. Jaime led her to a narrow tunnel half collapsed by the blast, its mouth blackened. 2 guards stood watch, grim and wary. When they saw Jaime, they stepped aside without question. The chamber beyond was silent. Charred beams lay scattered, and the walls were streaked with soot. Elenya crouched near the ground, her fingers brushing something small and sharp, a broken vial of green glass. "Wildfire." "There," she murmured, holding it to the light. "It burst from inside, not from without." Jaime frowned. "You mean?" "Someone placed the fire here and set it alight," she said. "Not by accident, by design." He cursed softly. "Then whoever did this meant for it to happen." "Yes, and meant for the king to blame your father," she said. "But who would benefit from that?" Before Jaime could answer, a faint sound broke the silence, the scrape of stone. They turned sharply. A shadow slipped between 2 pillars and vanished down a narrow corridor. "Stop!" Jaime shouted, sprinting after it. Elenya followed, her cloak flying behind her. The passage wound steeply downward, lit only by the flicker of their torches. The figure ahead, slim, hooded, darted like a rat through the dark. Jaime gained ground quickly, his boots thundering on the stone. At last, he caught the figure and slammed it against the wall. The hood fell away. "By the gods!" Elenya whispered. "It's the Maester!" Kralen's pale face glistened with sweat. His eyes darted between them, wild. "You shouldn't have come here," he hissed. "You don't understand what's at play." "Explain it to us," Jaime said, pressing him harder against the wall. "Now!" The Maester's lips trembled. "The king, he sent orders months ago. Wildfire, in secret, hidden beneath the rock. He said it was to guard against rebellion. But when I saw the shipment, I knew something was wrong. He meant to burn you all if you defied him, to cleanse the West with dragon fire. Olenya's blood turned to ice. No. Kraelin's eyes gleamed in the torchlight. I tried to hide it. I thought I could bury it before his madness spread further. But someone found out. Someone here. Who? Jaime demanded. The Maester swallowed hard. A servant of your father's, one who brings him his ledgers and correspondence. He saw me move the crates and demanded gold for his silence. I paid him, but he told others. Then the fire came. Name him, Jaime said coldly. Kraelin hesitated. His name is Roderick. He serves in the counting house. But you must listen. The king will not stop. He will claim treachery, whether truth or lies. If you do not flee, both lion and dragon will burn. Before Olenya could speak, an arrow whistled from the dark. It struck Kraelin through the throat. He gasped, staggered, and fell at their feet, the torchlight catching the glint of his chain as his lifeblood pooled upon the stone. 7 hells! Jaime swore, drawing his sword. Olenya spun toward the shadows. Another figure stood at the far end of the tunnel, cloaked, masked, bow still in hand. The killer turned and fled deeper into the dark. They gave chase, the sound of boots echoing like thunder. The tunnel opened suddenly into a vast cavern, the sea visible far below through narrow cracks. The wind roared in from the cliffside, carrying the smell of salt and fire. The assassin reached the edge, leapt across a gap, and vanished through an iron door. Jaime and Olenya followed, bursting out into a narrow landing above the western cliffs. The dawn was breaking, crimson light spilling across the water, but the killer was gone. Only a coil of rope dangled from the wall, swaying in the wind. He escaped to the sea, Olenya said bitterly. Whoever he was, he'll vanish like smoke. Jaime knelt beside a discarded token glinting in the dust, a small golden lion's headpin. He held it up silently. Olenya stared. That's your father's sigil. No, Jaime said, his jaw tight. That's his steward's, Roderick. The name hung in the air like a curse. We have proof then, Olenya said. Roderick served as the bridge, the one who set the trap. He must have sold the king's orders to someone who wished for fire. Jaime rose, his expression grim. My father will want his head. And Eris will want his fire justified, Olenya said softly. We have a narrow path to walk, Jaime, too narrow for both our houses to pass. They made their way back through the tunnels, their torches flickering weakly. By the time they emerged into the upper halls, the rock was stirring, servants running, guards shouting. Smoke still drifted faintly from the mines below. At the great hall's doors, Tywin awaited them. His armor gleamed, and behind him stood rows of knights ready for war. Well, he said, have you found your truth, princess? Olenya met his gaze, exhaustion heavy in her bones. The fire was no act of rebellion, my lord. It was a snare set by the king himself, twisted by a traitor in your own house. Roderick. The Maester confirmed it before he died. Tywin's face did not move, but his eyes hardened to steel. Roderick, a worm feeding on gold. He fled, Jaime added, by sea. Then I shall find him, Tywin said coldly. And when I do, the rock will know who feeds its fires. He turned sharply to his men. Send ravens to every port. No ship leaves the western coast without my word. Olenya watched him go, the hall trembling with his fury. Jaime lingered beside her, silent. When the last of the knights had departed, she whispered, This will not end here. My uncle will not forget this insult, real or imagined. No, Jaime said quietly, and my father will not forgive it. They stood together in the empty hall, two heirs to ancient pride, bound now by a secret neither could reveal without doom. Outside, the sun broke fully over the sea, its light burning red across the waves, not golden nor silver, but the color of blood. And above Casterly Rock, the first ravens took flight. By midday, the rock seethed like a hive disturbed. Ravens beat their wings to the corners of the realm, and every corridor thrummed with the march of armored boots. Lord Tywin's rage was quiet, but absolute, a still, burning fury that made servants tremble and knights lower their eyes. None doubted that when the Lion of the West gave his roar, kingdoms listened. From her window, Olenna watched the courtyards below. Horses were saddled, banners prepared, and soldiers gathered in formation like a living river of gold and crimson. Yet among all that order, she saw fear. Men glancing toward the sea, whispering of wildfire and traitors. The air itself seemed heavy with smoke, though the fires below had long been smothered. A knock came at her door. She turned to find Jaime standing there, a fresh scar across his cheek from a splintered beam in the mines. He wore no armor, only a dark tunic embroidered with lions. His sword hung loosely at his side. "My father means to march," he said without preamble. "He sent word to the Westerlands and beyond. He'll not strike yet, but the claws are unsheathed." Olenna drew her cloak about her shoulders. "And the king? He demands recompense. He accuses my house of hoarding his fire, of plotting against the crown." Jaime's tone was bitter. "The raven came at dawn. My father says another word from the Mad King, and he'll answer with steel." She looked past him, toward the horizon where the sea met the sky in a line of smoke and light. Then war waits like a wolf at the gate. Jaime's hand tightened on the hilt of his sword. "If it comes, there will be no victors. You know that, don't you?" Olenna met his gaze. "I do, which is why we must end this before it begins." He frowned. "How?" "By proving the king's guilt," she said. "The Maester spoke truth before he died. Eris meant to burn your father's house, but a dead man's word will not save us. We need something the realm cannot deny." Jaime's eyes narrowed. "And where would we find that?" "In the one place the king guards most closely, his own records, letters, orders, seals. Somewhere in the royal correspondence lies proof of his intent." "You mean to return to King's Landing?" Olenna nodded. "It is the only way." Jaime hesitated. "If my father learns—" "He will," she said, "but not until it is done." He stared at her a long moment, then said softly, "You have courage, princess, or madness." "Sometimes they are the same thing," she replied. Before dusk, she had prepared to leave, a single chest for her belongings, a travel cloak of deep violet, a small dagger hidden at her belt. Jaime came to her in the stables, the smell of hay and salt heavy in the air. "I've arranged a ship," he said. "It sails under a Lannisport banner, bound for the capital by way of Fair Isle. The crew knows nothing. You'll have 3 days before my father learns of your departure." Olenna paused, looking at him. "And you?" He smiled faintly. "My place is here for now. Someone must keep the lions from tearing down the den before you return." For a moment, neither spoke. Then she said quietly, "When I return, the realm may look upon us differently, lion and dragon, standing side by side." Jaime laughed under his breath. "The singers would make songs of it." "Or dirges," she said. He caught her hand, sudden and unguarded. "Be careful, Olenna. The king is not the man you remember from the court. His madness spreads like wildfire itself. He burns those who displease him, and those who please him more." "I know," she said softly. "But I carry dragon's blood, and fire cannot burn its own." That night, she sailed beneath a moonless sky. The sea was calm, the ship cutting through black waters like a silent blade. Lannisport's lights dwindled to a smear of gold behind her. She stood upon the deck, the wind tugging at her cloak, her heart heavy with the weight of what awaited. She dreamed little on that voyage. When sleep came, it brought visions. Her uncle upon the Iron Throne, his hands slick with green fire, Jaime standing amid ashes, his armor melted to his skin, and beneath them both, a shadow with golden eyes whispering, "A lamb for the lion." It was nearly dawn when Fair Isle appeared on the horizon, its cliffs pale against the sea. The captain, a stout man with a silver beard, gave her a curt nod. "By nightfall, we'll reach the capital, my lady." But as the day grew long, storm clouds gathered from the east. The wind rose, fierce and sudden. Rain lashed the deck. The sea turned to iron. By evening, waves struck like fists, hurling the ship from crest to trough. "Reef the sails!" the captain shouted. "Gods damn it! We're in the Stormland's shadow." Olenna clung to the railing, the world a blur of rain and foam. Lightning split the sky, casting the sea in blinding white. Then came a sound like thunder, but not from the heavens, a crack of wood, a roar of flame. The mast had caught fire. "Wildfire," a sailor screamed. "It's burning from the hold." Olenna's blood froze. She stumbled toward the hatch, forcing it open through the smoke. The hold below glowed with an eerie green light. Crates burst one by one, spilling liquid fire that crawled up the walls like living serpents. Someone had planted it there. "Abandon ship!" the captain bellowed. Men leapt into the sea, their cries lost in the storm. Olenna turned back once, her silver hair whipping in the wind. The ship's deck was aflame, emerald, and terrible. With a desperate breath, she dove into the black water just as the vessel exploded behind her, a blossom of fire lighting the night. When she surfaced, debris floated around her. The sea hissed and steamed where the wildfire burned. She grasped a shattered beam and held fast as the waves carried her away. Hours passed, or minutes, she could not tell. The storm howled, dragging her toward the distant coast. At last, the wind fell silent. The first light of dawn crept across the water. She lay upon a stony shore, coughing salt from her lungs. Her cloak was gone, her dress torn, her hands raw, yet she was alive. In the distance, she saw the walls of a small port town, quiet, half asleep in the early light. Smoke rose from chimneys. Bells rang faintly for morning prayers. She rose on trembling legs and began the slow walk toward it. Behind her, the sea smoldered green. Someone had known her purpose. Someone wanted her dead before she reached King's Landing. The wildfire that had burned beneath Casterly Rock now burned upon the sea, and as Olenna Targaryen staggered toward the shore, soaked and shivering, she swore that whoever had set this fire would taste their own flames before the end. The game had ceased to be a dance of lions and dragons. Now it was war of shadows, and she would no longer play the lamb. The town was called Pebbleton, a quiet harbor of fishermen and traders perched upon the western shore. Its people were simple folk who bowed to no banners save the tides. Smoke rose from their hearths as Olenna stumbled through the muddy streets, her cloak little more than a tattered rag, and her hair a curtain of silver tangled by the sea. A woman mending nets by the pier gasped when she saw her. "Gods above, girl, where have you come from?" Olenna steadied herself, forcing calm into her voice. "A shipwreck," she said. "The storm took us near Fair Isle." The woman frowned. "Aye, we saw the fire on the water last night, thought it witchlight or worse. You're lucky to be alive." "Luck," Elenya murmured. Perhaps. The fisherwoman offered her a cloak and a place to rest, but Elenya refused gently. She could not linger. Word of a burning ship would reach both the rock and the capital soon enough, and she needed to vanish before ravens carried her name across the sky. She made her way inland along a narrow path through salt marsh and heather. The sky was pale, the wind sharp. Twice she passed riders on the road, men in rough mail with no sigils, sell swords by their look. Each time she kept her hood low and her pace steady, her dagger hidden beneath her sleeve. By nightfall, she reached a crossroads inn, its sign a painted stag with one broken antler. The smell of roasting meat and ale drifted through the air. She hesitated at the door. To enter was to risk being seen, but hunger gnawed at her like a wolf. Inside, the common room was full of travelers, merchants, sailors, and a few soldiers wearing the crimson cloaks of Lannisport's levy. She took a seat in the corner, facing the door, and ordered bread and broth. The innkeeper, a balding man with wary eyes, brought it without question, though his gaze lingered on her silver hair. As she ate, she listened. Men spoke freely, when they thought no one heard. They say the Mad King means to send his pyromancers west again, one sailor said, to finish what the first fire started. Mad, is it? Another spat. You'd think dragons would know better than to pour fire on gold. Tywin'll not stand for it. Nor should he, growled a third. If I were him, I'd march to King's Landing myself. Elenya's stomach tightened. The storm she had feared was already breaking. Then she heard another voice, soft, careful. And if the king's hand was forced, if someone else stoked the flame? The speaker sat alone by the hearth, a hooded man in a travel-stained cloak. His hands were clean, his boots fine. Not a sailor, nor a soldier. Something about him drew her attention like a magnet to steel. The others jeered, calling him dreamer and fool, but he only smiled. When he rose to leave, his eyes brushed across the room, and for a heartbeat, they met hers. Golden eyes. Elenya froze. She had seen them once before, in the tunnels beneath Casterly Rock, when the Meister's dying words still echoed in her ears. The shadow who had slain him had eyes of molten gold. The man turned and stepped out into the night. Elenya waited a count of 10 before following. The wind outside was cold and sharp, carrying the scent of the sea. The man walked down the dirt road toward the trees, moving swiftly, his cloak billowing behind him. She followed at a distance, silent as mist. At the edge of the forest, he paused, glancing back. "You follow poorly," he said without turning. His voice was smooth, almost amused. Elenya drew her dagger. "Who are you?" He turned then, pulling back his hood. He was young, no older than Jaime, with hair the color of wheat and a face too handsome to trust. "You know who I am," he said. "You've seen me before." "The assassin in the tunnels," she said. "You killed the Meister." He inclined his head, unbothered. He served his purpose. His death was mercy. "Mercy," she hissed. "He was struck down for speaking truth." "Truth," he said softly, stepping closer. "A dangerous luxury in the game we play." She kept her dagger between them. "What game?" "The only one worth playing in Westeros. The one your blood was born to." His gaze flicked to her hair. "You are no simple envoy, princess. You are Eris's watcher, sent to measure the lion's strength. And I am the flame sent to test the dragons." She felt a chill then, deeper than cold. "You serve the king?" "I serve the future," he said. "A fire that will cleanse this rotting realm. Your uncle dreams of it, even if his madness hides it. The world must burn before it can be reborn." Elenya's grip tightened. "You speak like a zealot." "Perhaps. But tell me, princess, Have you not seen it? The corruption in the court, the greed of the lords, the pride of your kin? You seek peace among lions and dragons, but peace is an illusion. Fire is truth. Fire is justice. He moved like lightning. In a blink, her dagger was knocked aside, his hand gripping her wrist. You cannot stop it, he whispered. The wildfire was only the beginning. The king has already ordered more, hidden in the city's cellars, beneath the very streets of King's Landing. Alenya's eyes widened. You lie. Do I? His smile was cruel. You'll see it soon enough. When the bells toll, the city will shine brighter than the sun. She drove her knee into his stomach, wrenching free. He staggered, but only for a breath. She snatched her dagger from the ground and slashed, cutting across his arm. Blood spilled, dark in the moonlight. He stepped back, laughing softly. A dragon with teeth. Good. Then he turned and vanished into the trees, swift and silent as shadow. Alenya stood trembling, her breath ragged, her blade slick with his blood. She waited for pursuit, but none came. Only the wind moved among the leaves. She knelt where he had stood, searching the ground. Her fingers brushed against something. A ring, golden, engraved with the shape of a lion's head devouring a flame. She pocketed it quickly. When she returned to the inn, dawn was rising pale over the hills. The common room was empty, save for the innkeeper sweeping the floor. Leaving so soon, my lady? He asked. Yes, she said, pulling her cloak tight. I've business in the capital. Then may the gods keep you, he said, but his eyes lingered on the faint stain of soot upon her cheek. Alenya mounted a borrowed horse and rode east, the road long and lonely ahead. Her thoughts burned like coals. Wildfire beneath the city, a zealot serving her uncle's madness, the realm poised upon the edge of ruin. She thought of Jaime and his quiet defiance, of Tywin's unbending pride, of the mines that had nearly become their tomb. The world around her was a tinderbox, and all it lacked was the spark. By the time the spires of King's Landing came into view, black against a crimson sunset, Alenya Targaryen knew that she was riding not toward peace, but toward the heart of the fire. And this time, she would not come as a lamb. She would come as the dragon's heir. The gates of King's Landing loomed before her like the jaws of some sleeping beast. The city beyond shimmered in the heat of afternoon, its streets winding in endless confusion, its towers leaning toward the sky like crooked fingers. The air smelled of smoke and tanner's vats, salt and sweat, 1,000 lives pressed together beneath the shadow of the Red Keep. Alenya rode through the river gate with her hood drawn low, a traveler among many. Wagons creaked beside her, laden with grain and wine from the reach. Beggars cried for alms. Guards in crimson cloaks lounged by the walls, too weary or corrupt to question another stranger. The noise was deafening after days on the road. The clatter of hooves, the bark of hucksters, the ceaseless hum of humanity. As she climbed toward the hill of Aegon's High Hill, she saw the castle rising above the city like a crown of black iron. The Red Keep, home of her kin, and seat of her uncle's madness. By nightfall, she reached the outer gates. The guards stiffened as she pulled back her hood, revealing the glint of silver hair. Princess Alenya Targaryen, she said, daughter of House Valerian and blood of the dragon, I come by royal summons. It was not quite a lie. The king had sent her west, and now she returned. The men exchanged uneasy glances, but let her pass. As she rode into the courtyard, she felt the eyes of every servant and soldier upon her. Rumor had already flown faster than any raven. Wildfire in the west, a princess lost at sea, and now returned like a ghost. A steward met her, and led her through the maze of crimson halls. The torches burned green in the sconces, their light reflecting off armor polished too bright. Even the air felt wrong here, thick, watchful, humming faintly with unseen flame. When she entered the throne room, the great doors groaned open like the gates of hell. King Aerys sat upon the iron throne, a tangle of blades that seemed to grow around him like thorns around a dying rose. His hair hung lank about his face, and his beard had grown long and wild. But his eyes, those violet eyes once filled with pride, now burned with feverish light. At his side stood Lord Corlton Chelsted, the master of coin, and Rossart, the chief pyromancer, robed in green silk. The smell of oil and smoke clung to him like a second skin. Olenna knelt at the foot of the dais. "Your Grace," she said softly. For a heartbeat, silence. Then Aerys laughed, a high, brittle sound that echoed through the hall. "My little niece returns. I was told you were drowned in the Western Sea. A pity that. I had thought to light candles for you. I thank your Grace for your mercy," she said, rising. "But I am no ghost. I bring tidings from the rock." At once the smile vanished. "The rock," he hissed. "Traitor's den. Tywin hides my fire, hoards my gold, and thinks himself king. Does he send you now to beg forgiveness?" "No, uncle," Olenna said carefully. "I come to warn you. The fire beneath the rock was not of Tywin's making. It was placed there by deceit, by those who wish to set crown and lion at war." Rossart's lips curled in a faint smile. "Who would dare such a thing, your Grace? None but lions themselves." Aerys slammed a hand against the arm of his throne. "Lies! The lions plot against me, as all do. Even you, girl. You think I do not see it? You think your pretty face can hide the truth?" Olenna felt the heat of his madness like a furnace. "I think only of the realm, my king. Of peace." "Peace?" He spat the word. "There is no peace, only fire and treachery. They all whisper of Rhaegar, of prophecy, of kings to come. But I am the dragon, the true flame." He rose suddenly, his robes trailing like smoke. "Rossart, show her what loyalty means." The pyromancer inclined his head. "As you command, your Grace." He clapped his hands, and from the shadows, 2 alchemists emerged, bearing a crystal phial. Within it shimmered the unmistakable green of wildfire. Aerys smiled thinly. "Do you know what this is, child? The purest essence of flame. 1 drop can burn a man to ash before he screams. I have ordered it placed beneath the great sept, beneath the flea bottom, beneath every wall that dares defy me. Let them rise against their king, and I will cleanse them all. King's Landing will burn brighter than the sun." Olenna's blood ran cold. "You would destroy your own city?" "My city?" His eyes blazed. "It is mine to burn. The small folk are insects, the lords serpents. Only the fire is true." "Uncle," she said quietly, "if you light that fire, there will be no realm left to rule." For an instant, silence fell again. Then, unexpectedly, Aerys laughed once more, soft, almost gentle. "Ah, Olenna, so like your mother. She begged too once, but dragons cannot weep." He turned his back upon her. "Take her to her chambers. She will stay here until I have need of her. Perhaps she'll watch when the fire is lit." Guards seized her by the arms. She did not resist, though every instinct screamed to fight. She let them lead her through the winding corridors, her mind burning with terror and fury. Her cell was not truly a dungeon, merely a high room in the Tower of the Hand, stripped bare of comfort. From its narrow window, she could see the city sprawling below, smoke rising from the chimneys, the river glinting like a serpent's back. Somewhere beneath those streets, pyromancers poured their green death into jars. That night, she did not sleep. She paced until her feet ached, replaying every word of the day. The king was lost to madness. His fire would consume them all. She had to escape, to warn someone. Tywin, Jaime, anyone who could stop the blaze. Near midnight, she heard a sound outside the door, a soft scrape, a whisper. Then, the lock clicked. The door opened, and a figure slipped inside. A man in a guardsman's cloak. He pulled back his hood, revealing a young face pale as moonlight and eyes the color of emerald glass. "Sir Lewin Martell," she breathed. "You serve in the King's Guard." He raised a finger to his lips. "Quiet, princess. There are ears everywhere." She stepped back, confused. "Why are you here?" "To help you," he said simply. "The king grows worse by the hour. He speaks of fire and betrayal, of burning the city before Rhaegar's return. I cannot stand by while he destroys us all." "You believe me then," she said. "I saw the pyromancers at their work. The tunnels are filled with jars. One spark, and we all burn." He hesitated, glancing toward the door. There are others in the King's Guard who doubt him too, though fear binds their tongues. But if we move swiftly, tonight, we can flee the city and bring word to Rhaegar at Dragonstone. Olenna felt a surge of hope. "Then we go now." Lewin nodded. "Follow me. Keep to the shadows." They slipped through the silent halls of the Red Keep, past sleeping guards and tapestries that seemed to watch them with sightless eyes. Once, they heard a distant laugh echo from the throne room, a high, thin cackle that chilled the blood. At the stables, Lewin saddled 2 swift horses. "We'll ride for the river gate," he whispered. "If we can reach the Blackwater before dawn, we may yet live to see another sun." But as they rode out beneath the stars, Olenna glanced back at the looming towers of the castle, and dread filled her heart. The fire was already awake within those walls, whispering to the mad king who dreamed of ashes. And she knew then that saving the realm might mean more than fleeing. It might mean returning to face the fire herself. The night wind tore at Olenna's cloak as the 2 riders fled through the sleeping city. The moon hung low above King's Landing, a pale coin behind drifting clouds, its light spilling over cobbled streets slick with the day's rain. The horses' hooves struck sparks as they galloped past shuttered inns and empty markets, past the looming domes of septs and the dark alleys where rats scurried. Olenna clung to the saddle, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. Beside her, Sir Lewin rode silent, his white cloak trailing behind him like a ghost. At every turn he cast wary glances, as though expecting shadows to leap from the walls. The city seemed to breathe around them, 1,000 unseen hearts beating in the dark. They crossed the street of steel, where the forges burned low, the air thick with smoke and the bitter tang of metal. From one open door came the ring of hammers and the hiss of molten iron. Even now, the city never slept. "Once we reach the gate," Lewin said over the wind, "I have men loyal to Dorne. They'll see us clear of the river. From there, Dragonstone lies 2 days by ship." Olenna nodded, though her thoughts were far from the sea. Behind them, in the Red Keep, her uncle sat upon his throne of blades, whispering to the fire as though it were his own child. How many casks of wildfire had he ordered hidden beneath these very streets? How many innocents would die when his madness reached its peak? They reached the river gate just as the sky began to pale. 2 guards stood watch, half asleep. Lewin reined in his horse and dismounted. "Leave this to me," he murmured. The guard straightened as he approached, blinking at the white of his cloak. "Sir Lewin," one said uncertainly, "you ride early." "By the king's command," he replied smoothly. "A message to the master of ships. Open the gate." The men hesitated, then turned the winch. The great doors groaned open, spilling them into the night beyond. Elenya guided her horse through first, the cool scent of the river washing over her. For a moment, she allowed herself to breathe. Then a voice called from behind. "Hold!" She turned sharply. Another figure approached from the shadows, a Kingsguard knight, his armor gleaming pale as moonlight. He removed his helm, revealing a stern face framed by golden hair. "Sir Lewin," he said, his tone hard, "the king commands that none leave the city, not even us." Lewin cursed softly. "Sir Jonathor," he said, "the king's command will burn us all if we obey it. Step aside." The golden knight shook his head. "You know I cannot." "Then forgive me," Lewin said. Steel flashed. The two knights clashed in a blur of white cloaks and silver blades, their swords ringing like bells in the dark. Elenya's horse reared, startled by the sound. She dismounted, drawing her dagger. "Go!" Lewin shouted. "Ride!" But she did not. She could not. The fight was too even. Lewin swift, his Dornish blade a snake of steel. Jonathor strong, his strikes heavy and relentless. Sparks flew as their swords met again and again. At last, Jonathor's blade slipped past Lewin's guard, slicing across his arm. He staggered, but before the final blow could fall, Elenya darted forward and hurled her dagger. It struck Jonathor's shoulder. He cried out, his sword falling. Lewin seized the moment. With one swift motion, he drove his blade into the knight's side. Jonathor gasped, eyes wide, and fell to the ground, his white cloak spreading around him like a shroud. The world went still. Lewin turned to Elenya, breathing hard. Blood streaked his sleeve. "You should not have stayed," he said, though there was no anger in his voice. "I could not leave you," she whispered. He gave a faint, weary smile. "You have your mother's heart, too brave for your own good." The sound of distant horns cut the dawn air. Lewin's expression hardened. "They'll have heard. We must go, now." They mounted once more and galloped across the bridge spanning the Blackwater. Mist rose from the river, curling around them like ghostly fingers. Behind, the city's towers glimmered red in the sunrise. When they reached the far bank, Lewin slowed. "There's an inn ahead, the River Queen. My men wait there. We'll take a skiff downriver to the bay." Elenya glanced back only once. Smoke already rose faintly from the city's heart, curling upward from the direction of the guild hall of the alchemists. "The fire has begun," she said softly. Lewin followed her gaze. "Then we ride all the faster." They reached the inn by mid-morning. A handful of riders stood waiting in the yard, rough men with Dornish features and cloaks of faded red. They greeted Lewin with quiet respect and eyed Elenya with curiosity. "She is the king's blood," Lewin said simply. "We take her to Dragonstone." The captain of the group, a scarred man named Ryan, nodded. "Then we move before the crown's dogs find our scent." They led their horses to the riverbank where a narrow boat waited. Elenya stepped aboard, her heart pounding as they pushed from the shore. The current caught them at once, carrying them eastward toward the bay. Hours passed in uneasy silence. The river broadened, the banks falling away into marsh and meadow. Once, a flock of blackbirds scattered above them, startled by some unseen movement in the reeds. Elenya shivered. Every ripple, every gust of wind seemed to whisper of pursuit. By dusk, they neared the sea. The water turned brackish, the scent of salt filling the air. Ahead, the masts of trading ships rose against the darkening sky. "We'll take one of those," Ryan said. "Slip out before the harbor master smells trouble." But before they could reach the open water, A horn sounded from upriver. Another answered, closer. Then came the splash of oars. "Riders," Lewin said grimly. "The king's men." Ryan drew his sword. "We can make the bay if we hold them off." "Go," Lewin told Olenya. "If they catch you, all is lost." "I will not leave you," she said. He gave a sad smile. "You must. The realm needs truth more than it needs me." Before she could answer, arrows hissed through the air, striking the water. The soldiers' cries echoed across the river. Ryan's men returned fire, their bolts finding targets among the pursuing boats. The river erupted into chaos. Lewin caught Olenya's arm. "Now!" He shoved her toward the small skiff tied at the stern. She stumbled into it, grasping the oars. He untied the rope and gave it a push. The current seized it instantly. "Ride the tide!" he shouted. "Do not look back!" "Lewin!" she cried, but the roar of battle drowned her voice. The river swept her away, spinning her skiff like a leaf. She glimpsed flashes of steel, torches flaring, the white cloak of the Dornish night gleaming one last time amid the fight. Then the bend of the river hid it all. When the sea opened before her, vast and dark, she rowed until her arms ached, until the shore was no more than a shadow. The sky burned crimson at the horizon, as though the world itself were aflame. She collapsed at last, breathless, the waves rocking her gently. Above, the first stars kindled one by one, cold and distant. Lewin was gone. The king was mad, and the wildfire waited beneath the city, dreaming of release. Olenya wiped the tears from her face and looked eastward, where Dragonstone's black silhouette rose faintly against the night. "Then to you, Rhaegar," she whispered. "Let the true dragon hear the truth before it is too late." She took the oars again and began to row, her movements slow but steady, guided by the starlight upon the water. Behind her, the sky over King's Landing glowed faintly green. The sea was black glass beneath the dawn, rolling in long, slow breaths that whispered of ancient depths. Olenya rowed until her palms bled and her shoulders burned, but she did not stop. Every pull of the oars carried her further from the river's mouth, further from the madness of her uncle's fire. The salt wind stung her eyes and tangled her silver hair, but she welcomed the pain. It kept her awake. When at last the sun climbed above the horizon, she saw the faint shadow of Dragonstone rising from the waves ahead, a fortress shaped like a dragon's claw, its towers smoking from the volcano that birthed it. Black stone glimmered in the morning light, and the air smelled faintly of sulfur and ash. Her heart ached at the sight. Here had Aegon dreamed his conquest, and here Rhaegar now brooded, the realm's last hope against the storm of his father's madness. By mid-morning, she reached the docks. The garrison recognized her Targaryen features at once and lowered their spears, though unease flickered in their eyes. Word from the capital had traveled faster than the tide. They led her up the steep path that wound through the fortress, past carvings of dragons so lifelike they seemed ready to leap from the stone. At the great hall's doors, 2 knights barred her way until a soft voice commanded, "Let her pass." Prince Rhaegar Targaryen stood within, pale and solemn as a statue. His silver hair fell to his shoulders, and the light of the torches shone in his violet eyes. He wore no crown, only a black tunic clasped with a ruby brooch. Yet the air about him seemed heavy with destiny. Olenya fell to one knee. "Your Grace." "Rise, cousin," he said gently. "You have come far. I feared the sea had taken you." "I nearly met that fate," she said, her voice hoarse. "But I bring tidings graver than any storm." Rhaegar gestured to a seat by the hearth. "Then speak, and I will listen." She told him everything, of her mission to the rock, of Tywin's fury, of the wildfire hidden beneath Casterly Rock, and King's Landing alike, of the assassin with golden eyes, and finally, of her uncle's descent into madness. She spoke until her throat ached, until the words themselves felt like knives. When she finished, Rhaegar sat in silence for a long time, staring into the fire. The flames reflected in his eyes, red and gold. "So it is as I feared," he said at last. "The rot spreads deeper than even I imagined. My father means to destroy what little remains of his realm." "He has already begun," Elenya said. "The pyromancers prepare the city for burning. If we do nothing, the people will die screaming beneath his fire." Rhaegar rose, pacing the length of the hall. "I have tried to reason with him. He sees betrayal in every shadow. When I begged him to disband the pyromancers, he called me usurper." "He will not stop," she said quietly. "He believes himself the dragon reborn. There is no reason left in him." Rhaegar stopped before her, his expression unreadable. "Then the realm must be saved from him, even if that means blood." Elenya felt the words like a blow. "You mean rebellion?" "I mean duty," he said. "A king who burns his people is no king. If the lords will rally to me, I can spare the realm from ruin." "The lords are afraid," she warned. "Tywin plots vengeance, Robert Baratheon eyes the throne, and the North watches in silence. If you rise too soon, they will not see salvation, only another war." Rhaegar's gaze softened. "You speak wisely, cousin, but time is against us. Every day the fire grows. We must act before it consumes us all." He turned to the map spread upon the table, the painted rivers and hills lit by candlelight. "I will send word to trusted men, Jon Arryn in the Vale, Hoster Tully, perhaps even Eddard Stark if he will listen. But we must tread carefully. The wrong whisper could doom us." "I will ride where you bid," Elenya said. "My name may yet open doors your banners cannot." Rhaegar smiled faintly. "Your courage honors our house. Yet I would not risk you again so soon. Rest first. You have earned it." She bowed and withdrew, though her mind refused to rest. That night she dreamed of fire again. The throne room blazed, and her uncle stood wreathed in green light, laughing as the city burned. But behind him loomed another figure, a man with a golden lion's mask, holding a torch aloft. When he turned, his eyes were molten gold. She woke with a gasp, her heart pounding. The next morning, the sea was calm, and the island hummed with purpose. Messengers rode from the gates with sealed letters bearing the prince's sigil. Rhaegar had summoned allies, though which would answer none could say. As she walked along the ramparts, Elenya heard the sound of wings. A raven circled above before descending to the rookery tower. The Maester fetched the message and hurried to the prince. Moments later, a horn blew from the courtyard, summoning all within the keep. Rhaegar met them upon the steps, the letter crushed in his fist. "The storm has broken," he said. "Robert Baratheon has raised his banners. The realm burns." A murmur swept the gathered knights. Elenya felt the world tilt beneath her feet. "Already?" she whispered. "The Mad King has demanded the heads of Robert and Eddard Stark," Rhaegar said grimly. "Jon Arryn refused. The Vale stands with the North and the Stormlands. The Trident will follow." "What of the Rock?" she asked. "Tywin remains silent," he said. "But silence from the lion is never peace. He will wait until he smells blood." Rhaegar's voice hardened. "The war I hope to prevent has begun. Yet perhaps through it, the realm may still be saved." He turned to her then, his gaze steady. "You will ride with me to the Trident. The people must see that not all the blood of the dragon is mad." "I will follow you, my prince," she said, though fear coiled cold within her chest. Days later, they departed Dragonstone beneath banners of red and black. Their host was small, loyal knights and men-at-arms, bound more by faith in Rhaegar's name than by oaths. As they crossed the narrow sea to the mainland, Olenna watched the waves darken beneath gathering clouds. On the third night, as their campfires burned low, Rhaegar came to her tent. His face was drawn, his eyes shadowed. "I dreamed again," he said quietly. "A great battle by a river, the dragon against the stag, and fire swallowing them both." "Dreams are not fate," she said, though her own dreams said otherwise. "Perhaps," he murmured. "But if it must come to pass, then let it be for something worth dying for." He turned toward the darkness beyond the tents. "Rest, cousin. Tomorrow we march for the Trident. The world may be remade there, or broken forever." When he was gone, Olenna sat long by the dying fire. The night was heavy with silence, the air thick with the scent of rain. In the distance, lightning flickered across the clouds, pale and green. The storm was coming, and with it the fate of kings and kingdoms. And though she did not yet know it, the next time she saw the Red Keep, it would not be the palace of her birth, but a pyre awaiting its flame. The march from Dragonstone began beneath skies heavy with storm. The sea mist followed them inland, draping the valleys in a ghostly shroud. Prince Rhaegar rode at the head of his host beneath the black and red banners of House Targaryen, the dragon standard fluttering against the wind. Olenna rode at his side, her silver hair bound beneath a hood, her thoughts a tangle of fire and blood. For days they passed through villages half empty, their people gone to join one lord or another. Everywhere the smell of smoke and iron clung to the air. Fields lay trampled beneath hooves, and distant hills glowed faintly from burning holds. The realm was tearing itself apart. At every town, men came to Rhaegar's banners. Knights sworn to the crown who had turned from the king, farmers wielding scythes, young squires seeking glory before the storm consumed them all. Yet still, their number was too few. The Trident awaited, and beyond it, Robert Baratheon's fury. On the 6th day, they reached the ford of the Blackwater, where messengers awaited them with grim tidings. The rebel host had crushed the loyalist army at Summerhall. The royal fleet, commanded by the king's own admiral, had been burned in harbor by storms conjured as if the gods themselves struck at the Targaryens, and from the west, silence still, Tywin Lannister watching, waiting. That night, Rhaegar gathered his captains in a ruined sept. Candlelight flickered upon the cracked faces of the 7 carved in stone. Olenna stood apart, listening as the prince spoke. "We cannot fight for my father's madness," he said, his voice low but steady. "Nor can we abandon the realm to rebels who would tear it apart for their own crowns. We fight for peace, to end the fire before it burns the world." Lord John Connington frowned. "Peace dies when Robert takes the throne. He'll not spare your father or your children." Rhaegar's gaze fell to the floor. Then perhaps the dragon must die before peace can live. The silence that followed was long and heavy. None dared speak the words aloud, but all knew their meaning. When the council ended, Olenna found Rhaegar alone in the courtyard, the rain falling softly upon his armor. The ruby clasp at his throat gleamed like a drop of blood. "You would take the burden upon yourself," she said. He turned to her, eyes distant. "What else can I do? My father has lost the realm. If I cannot save it through love, then I must through sacrifice." "You are not the monster he is," she whispered. "Do not believe you share his curse." He smiled faintly. Perhaps it is not curse, but destiny. Then he looked to the north, where thunder rolled. Tomorrow we cross the Trident. When dawn broke, the host moved again. The rain came harder, turning roads to rivers and the earth to mud. By evening, they reached the banks of the great river, swollen and red with silt. Across it, banners of storm and stag snapped in the wind. The rebels waited. Olenna felt the weight of doom settle upon the land. The sky itself seemed to hold its breath, heavy and still. Rhaegar ordered camp to be made along the southern bank. Fires flickered like stars in the mist. She could hear songs, low, mournful ones, sung by men who knew the morrow might be their last. As she walked among them, faces turned toward her, and she saw the fear in their eyes. They looked upon her silver hair and whispered of dragons and prophecy, of doom and rebirth. She offered them words of courage, though her own heart trembled. That night, Rhaegar summoned her again. His tent was lit by a single lamp, the air thick with the scent of damp cloth and steel. He sat before a small table, a map spread between them. "If I fall," he said without looking up, "you must ride south, find the loyal houses still unbroken, protect the innocents. Do not seek vengeance, Olenna. Promise me that." She shook her head. "You will not fall." He smiled sadly. "You have faith enough for us both. Keep it when mine fails." She wanted to speak, to beg him not to face Robert, but the words would not come. He reached across the table and took her hand. "The realm will need memory when this is done," he said softly. "If the fire consumes us, remember, there were those who tried to quench it." Before dawn, the horns sounded. The air trembled with the weight of thousands of hooves. Olenna stood upon the rise as the two armies formed upon opposite banks. The river gleamed like molten steel beneath the storm clouds. Rhaegar rode out ahead, clad in black armor inlaid with rubies that burned like living fire. Across the water, Robert Baratheon waited, huge upon his destrier, his hammer resting upon his knee. When the horns of both hosts sounded together, the world seemed to break apart. The charge began. Horses plunged into the river, shields splintered, men screamed. The clash of steel and thunder of hooves filled the air. Olenna could do nothing but watch as the tide of war consumed them. The river ran red. Through the chaos she glimpsed Rhaegar, his armor blazing like a second sun, as he met Robert in the center of the ford. The sound of their meeting was like the world cracking open. For an instant, the storm itself seemed to pause. Then came the hammer's fall, a blow that echoed across history. The rubies burst from Rhaegar's breastplate, scattering into the river like drops of blood. He fell without a cry. Olenna felt something within her break. Around her, the Targaryen lines faltered, their banners falling one by one. She tried to reach him, spurring her horse into the fray. But the current swept her back, the press of fleeing men too strong. When she finally broke free, the prince was gone beneath the waters, his ruby light extinguished. The battle ended as swiftly as it had begun. The rebels held the field, and the river carried the last of the dragon's hope away. That night, under a sky without stars, Olenna knelt beside the riverbank. The water lapped gently at her boots, as if mocking the blood it had drunk. Around her, the air was filled with the moans of the dying and the whisper of rain. She reached into the mud and found a single ruby, dull and cracked. She held it to her chest, feeling its chill seep into her bones. "He dreamed of peace," she whispered, "and died for it. The realm would remember only the war, not the prince who tried to end it." Yet as she rose and turned her horse south, the first light of dawn broke through the clouds. For a moment, the rain turned to mist, and she thought she saw a shadow upon the water, a dragon of smoke spreading its wings over the fallen. Olenna rode on, her cloak torn and her heart burning. Behind her, the river flowed unending, carrying the remnants of House Targaryen's glory toward the sea. Ahead lay King's Landing and the fire that awaited within its walls. The song of the dragons had not ended, it had only changed its tune. The wind that carried Olenna south smelled of ash and salt and death. The realm burned behind her, the fields of the Trident black with ruin, the rivers thick with silt and blood. The last of Rhaegar's banners had fallen, trampled beneath the hooves of the victorious. Yet still she rode, for there was one duty left to her, one ember she could not allow to die. Her horse stumbled often, its flanks streaked with mud. Each mile seemed longer than the last, but she pressed on. When the rain came, it was cold and endless, turning the roads into rivers. She kept her hood drawn low and her dagger close, for every village she passed had its own law now. The peace Rhaegar dreamed of was gone. The realm had been broken into 1,000 hungry pieces. 2 nights after the battle, she found shelter in a ruined sept upon a hill. The stone saints had lost their faces, and the altar was blackened by fire. She built a small flame in the corner and sat beside it, holding the last ruby she had taken from the trident. It no longer glowed. The light within it had died with him. When dawn came, she mounted again and rode for the capital. She traveled in secret, passing herself as a widow fleeing the war. Along the king's road she saw corpses hung from trees, men branded as traitors, thieves, and deserters. In some places the wolves had come to feed. The kingdom she had once known was unrecognizable. At last, after 7 days, the walls of King's Landing rose before her. The great city sprawled across the hills, its gates crowded with refugees and soldiers alike. Smoke drifted from the chimneys, but beneath it was another scent, thicker, sharper, wildfire. She dismounted far from the gate, concealing her horse among the reeds by the river. Cloaked and hooded, she joined the throng of beggars and merchants pressing toward the city. The guards barely looked at her. War had made them careless. She passed through the river gate unnoticed and entered the streets she had once known as a girl. Nothing was the same. The markets were silent, the taverns shuttered. Men whispered of Robert Baratheon marching for the capital, of Tywin Lannister's army waiting in the west. The people feared both equally, and above all, they feared the king. Olenna kept to the narrow ways, climbing the hill toward the Red Keep. The air grew hotter as she neared the fortress. Smoke curled from the grates along the streets, and now and again she heard the distant hum of something unnatural, the low roar of fire caged beneath the earth. At dusk, she reached the foot of the castle. The gates were closed, the guards doubled. She found her way instead to a postern door once used by the servants. A boy she had known in childhood, a scullion named Harlan, now stood watch there, grown to a man. When he saw her, his eyes widened in disbelief. "My lady, we thought you dead." "Not yet," she said. "Will you let me in?" He hesitated only a moment before nodding. "The king's gone mad, princess. He raves day and night, burns his own men alive. The pyromancers come and go at all hours. There's talk of something worse." "I know," she said grimly. "That is why I've returned." He led her through the dark corridors, past tapestries scorched by heat, past doors barred from within. The air smelled of oil and brimstone. Every few paces, she saw men in green robes carrying jars bound in lead. None spoke to her, none dared. At last, she reached the small chamber once hers as a child. It was dusty and cold, the windows shuttered. From beyond the walls came the faint murmur of chanting, pyromancers singing to their fires. That night, sleep would not come. She walked the halls in silence, her dagger at her side. When the moon rose over the bay, she found herself before the throne room. The great doors stood half open. She stepped within. The iron throne loomed above her, black and terrible in the torchlight. And there, seated upon its cruel blades, was her uncle, King Aerys II. He had grown thin, his skin sallow and stretched tight over bone. His eyes burned with fever. 2 pyromancers knelt before him, their faces hidden by hoods. "The jars are ready, Your Grace," one said. "Beneath the septs, beneath the gates, beneath the Red Keep itself. At your word, the city will become a dragon's pyre." "Good," Aerys whispered. "Let them all burn. Let them see my glory in the flames." Olenna stepped forward. "And who will rule your ashes, uncle?" He turned at the sound of her voice. For a moment, confusion crossed his face. "Olenna." No, you drowned. I saw your ship burn." "I lived," she said, "and I saw Rhaegar die. His war is lost. Robert Baratheon rides for the city. You can still surrender. Spare the people." "Surrender?" He rose from the throne, laughing. "Never. Let the usurper take his crown from fire and smoke. I am the dragon. They will remember my flames for 1,000 years." "Your flames will kill thousands more," she cried. "Men, women, children, your own blood." His laughter grew shrill. "Blood? There is no blood but fire. Even my children turned against me. You, perhaps you too. Did Rhaegar send you to steal my throne? Was that his plan?" She took a step forward, her hand on her dagger. "He sent me to save you." "Save me?" His eyes gleamed. "Then save me from the fire, girl." He snatched a torch from the wall and hurled it toward her. She ducked aside as it struck the floor, spilling flame across the rushes. The pyromancers cried out, but Aerys only laughed, spinning like a man possessed. "The wildfire sleeps beneath their feet," he hissed. "One word, and they will all burn. Burn them. Burn them all." Olenna's heart broke at the sight. This was no king, no dragon, only madness made flesh. She drew her dagger and stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "Forgive me," she whispered. But before she could strike, the doors burst open. Men in crimson and gold poured into the hall, Lannister soldiers, their swords dripping blood. And at their head, clad in shining armor, came Jaime Lannister. For an instant, time stopped. His eyes met hers across the burning floor. In that heartbeat, she understood what he meant to do. Aerys turned toward him, his face a mask of triumph. "You," he shrieked, "you serve me still. Slay her, Ser Jaime. Slay them all. Burn the city." Jaime's sword flashed in the firelight. Aerys's laughter turned to a gurgling scream. Blood splattered the throne's blades, running down its steps like rain. Silence followed, broken only by the crackle of fire. Jaime stood motionless, his sword red, his face pale. Olenna lowered her dagger, unable to speak. "He would have burned them all," Jaime said at last. His voice was hoarse. "Every man, woman, and child. I couldn't let him." She nodded slowly. "You did what had to be done." Around them, the Red Keep shook with the echo of battle, the sounds of Tywin's army seizing the city. Smoke billowed through the hall. Jaime sank to one knee, staring at the dead king's body. Olenna turned away, her tears lost in the heat. The throne loomed above them both, cruel and shining, and she knew that no man who sat upon it would ever know peace. Outside, the bells of the city began to ring. The dragons were dead, and the lions had come to rule the ashes. The bells tolled through the burning city, slow and mournful, their sound mingling with the screams that rose from the streets below. The air was heavy with smoke. From the high windows of the Red Keep, the fires of King's Landing stretched as far as Olenna could see. Lannister banners snapped in the wind, their crimson folds blackened by soot. The lions had entered the den, and the dragon's house lay in ruin. She stood upon the balcony of her chamber, watching the ruin unfold beneath her. The smell of wildfire still lingered, a sharp, bitter scent that turned her stomach. Somewhere in the distance, the great sept burned, its domes glowing like molten gold. Bodies choked the streets, and the small folk ran like ants through the smoke. The city of her birth, the jewel of her forefathers, had become a pyre. Behind her, the door opened. Jaime Lannister entered, unarmored now, his white cloak torn and stained with blood. He looked older than his years, the firelight carving shadows into his face. For a long moment he said nothing, merely stood there, the weight of his deed heavy upon him. "You should not be here," he said at last, his voice raw. "My father's men scour the castle. They'll not show mercy to a Targaryen, no matter how fair or how innocent." Olenna turned to him. "I cannot flee again," she said quietly. "There is nowhere left to run." Jaime's jaw tightened. "If they find you, they'll kill you. Or worse, I can take you from the city before he arrives." "Tywin will come soon enough," she said. "He will crown Robert, and the war will be done. You know as well as I that your father does not leave loose ends." For a heartbeat, neither spoke. The fire's glow flickered between them, throwing their faces into shifting light and shadow. Jaime stepped closer. "Then come before he does. There's a ship in the bay still unclaimed. You could sail east, Bravos, Pentos, anywhere." Olenna looked past him, her eyes fixed on the throne tower rising above the keep. "And abandon my house to memory? My blood to ash?" "Your house is already ash," he said bitterly. "I saw your uncle burn men alive for whispers. I watched Rhaegar die for dreams. Is that the legacy you die for?" She turned on him sharply, anger and grief flaring together. "Rhaegar died for hope. He died believing the realm could be saved." "And what was saved?" Jaime's voice broke. "I slew a king to stop him from burning his own people, and still they'll call me Kingslayer till the end of days. You cannot save this realm, Olenna. It's already drowned in fire." His words hung in the air like smoke. She looked away, unable to meet his eyes. Outside, thunder rolled over the bay, echoing like drums of war. After a long silence, she said, "If I flee, will you come with me?" Jaime's expression faltered. For an instant, she saw the boy she had met at Casterly Rock, the golden knight who had laughed easily, who had not yet been broken by oaths and madness. But the look vanished as quickly as it came. "I cannot," he said. "The Kingsguard do not flee." "You broke that oath when you slew him," she said softly. His eyes darkened. "Then let me keep this one thing. Let me see you safe." Olenna sighed, the anger leaving her like breath. "You've already saved me once. That must be enough." He reached for her then, but she stepped back. "Go," she said, "before your father finds you here." For a moment he hesitated, then turned toward the door. At the threshold, he paused and looked back. "When they write the songs, they'll call us enemies," he said, "but I'll remember otherwise." When he was gone, she stood alone in the dim chamber, the city burning below. Her hands trembled as she gathered her few possessions: a cloak, her dagger, and the ruby she had taken from the trident. It glimmered faintly in the firelight, as though remembering the prince it once adorned. She left the Red Keep by the postern gate as dawn broke. The air was thick with smoke, and ash drifted down like black snow. In the streets, Lannister soldiers dragged the dead from doorways and looted the living. She moved among them like a ghost, her hood low, her step steady. At the harbor, the water was slick with oil and blood. Dozens of ships lay burning, but a few still stood untouched. Merchant cogs taken by soldiers for plunder. She found one, its crew dead or fled, and untied its ropes with trembling hands. The tide pulled her outward as she raised the small sail. From the deck, she looked back at King's Landing one last time. The sun rose red over the city, lighting the smoke like a funeral pyre. The bells had fallen silent. The dragon banners were gone. Upon the towers now flew the stag and the lion. She turned her gaze eastward. The narrow sea lay before her, wide and endless, its waters glimmering like molten silver. Somewhere beyond that horizon, across leagues of wind and wave, there were still free cities untouched by this war. There, perhaps, the blood of the dragon might yet endure. But the sea was not kind. Storms hounded her for 3 days and nights. The ship groaned beneath the waves, its sails torn, its hull leaking. On the 4th night, when the wind at last fell, she lay upon the deck, her body weak, her mind fevered with dreams. She dreamed of Rhaegar standing by the river, his armor shining red. She dreamed of her uncle upon his throne of blades, his eyes wild with flame. And she dreamed of Jaime, alone in a hall of ashes, the crown of a dead king at his feet. When she woke, the storm had passed. The sun broke through the clouds, gilding the sea in gold. Far to the east, she saw land, a dark line rising from the water, crowned with white cliffs. Pentos, perhaps, or Lace. It mattered little. It was away. As she steered the crippled ship toward shore, she felt the weight of all that had been lost press upon her. House Targaryen was broken. The dragons were gone. Yet in her heart, something still burned, a single ember that refused to die. She would carry it across the sea. She would guard it, feed it, keep it alive until the day came when the world would again remember what dragons were. When the keel scraped against the sand, she stepped into the surf and fell to her knees. The waves washed around her, cool and clean, and for the first time in many months, she let herself weep. The salt of her tears mingled with the salt of the sea. Above her, gulls wheeled and cried, their voices high and wild. Behind her, Westeros burned unseen beyond the horizon. Ahead, the east waited, vast and unknown. She rose at last and walked up the shore, the ruby clutched tight in her hand. The age of dragons had ended, but their blood still flowed. In time, the world would remember. In time, fire would rise again. The shores of Essos stretched before her like a promise and a warning. For the first time in many moons, Olenna Targaryen set her feet upon foreign sand. The sea wind carried scents she did not know. Spice and myrrh, cedarwood, the faint musk of 1,000 unseen flowers. The sun burned high and white above, and the cries of gulls faded behind her as she walked inland. She found herself upon a long, sloping coast of pale dunes. In the distance, beyond a cluster of olive trees, the spires of a city shimmered through the haze. Pentos, traders had once spoken of its marble palaces and perfumed gardens, its merchant princes rich enough to buy kings. She had dreamed of it in her girlhood, imagining a place untouched by war. Now, her boots torn and her hands raw from rowing, she entered its gates as a beggar. The guards at the harbor gave her little notice. Refugees from the west arrived daily, broken knights, widows, and orphans cast off by the tide of war. She wrapped her cloak tighter around her and passed through the crowd of shouting sailors and sweating dockhands. The city was alive with noise, the clang of hammers, the chatter of markets, the songs of foreign tongues. Yet beneath the bustle, she sensed unease. The Westerosi War had cast a long shadow even here. She found an inn by the harbor wall, a narrow place called the Saffron Cup, its windows clouded by smoke. The keeper was a plump woman with a scar on her chin and a voice like gravel. When Elenya placed her last silver coin upon the counter, the woman squinted. "Stormland's Mark," she said. "You come from across the sea?" Elenya nodded. "The war drove me from my home." "Then you'll find good company here. Half the city's run from one war or another." She handed Elenya a key. "Third floor, last door. Mind you pay before the week is out." The room was small but clean. From its window, she could see the harbor below, ships rocking gently at anchor. She slept for a full day and woke at twilight, her body sore, but her mind sharper than it had been in months. She was alive, though she felt more ghost than flesh. That night she ventured into the streets. Lanterns burned along the canals, their lights dancing upon the water. Minstrels sang of far-off battles, and women in silks beckoned from shaded doorways. Pentos was a city of masks, beauty painted over rot. In a narrow market, she heard a familiar tongue. A man was selling smoked fish to a group of Westerosi sailors, their accents thick with the reach. She approached quietly, her hood drawn low. One of the sailors noticed her and grinned. "Seven save us, a silver-haired maid," he said. "You're a long way from home, girl." "I seek passage," she replied. "Eastward, to Bravos." He laughed. "Bravos? You'd best pray you've coin for it. The Magisters don't give favors." "I'll find a way," she said. When she turned to go, another voice called after her. "Wait!" A tall man stepped from the shadows. His beard was streaked with gray, his cloak of fine blue velvet. "Forgive my intrusion," he said in the common tongue, smooth and careful, but I could not help overhearing. "You seek Bravos, my lady?" She studied him warily. "I do." "Then perhaps fortune has smiled upon you. I am Magister Illyrio Mopatis, humble servant of trade and friend to exiles. My house offers aid to those who have lost much." Elenya hesitated. His eyes gleamed like polished amber, and there was calculation behind his courtesy. "And what would such aid cost me, Magister?" He smiled. "Only conversation. Come, let us share wine. The night is kind to strangers who listen." Against her better judgment, she followed him through winding streets to a manse of marble and gold. Inside, servants moved like shadows, bearing platters of fruit and sweetmeats. Illyrio led her to a chamber hung with silks and sat upon a couch heavy with cushions. "Few of your blood remain in the world," he said as he poured dark red wine, "and fewer still who survive the usurper's wrath. I hear whispers, names carried by the wind. Rhaella, Daenerys, Viserys, yours was not among them. How did you live, Princess Elenya?" Her heart froze. "How do you know my name?" He chuckled softly. "There are birds everywhere, my lady. Westeros burns, and even ashes speak. You are Aerys's niece, are you not? Cousin to the late Prince Rhaegar?" Elenya said nothing. Illyrio leaned forward. "Do not fear. I am no friend to Robert Baratheon. The usurper's reach does not extend here, nor will I betray one of Dragon's blood. Your kin are scattered, but not destroyed. There is still a spark left in the world, and sparks, as you know, may grow into fire." She met his gaze. "What do you want of me?" "Only to keep you alive," he said, smiling. "The Game of Thrones does not end with one king's death. Another storm will come, And when it does, those of your line may yet reclaim what was lost. She felt the old ache stir within her, the memory of Rhaegar upon the trident, of his dream of peace. "There is no throne worth the blood it demands," she said quietly. "The fire burned too many already." Illyrio's smile did not fade. "Perhaps, yet fire is the blood of your house. It cannot be quenched, only kindled anew." He raised his cup. "Rest here a while. The world beyond still remembers your name, though it whispers it in fear. When the time is right, you will decide whether you are ember or flame." That night, she lay upon a bed softer than any she had known since her childhood in the Red Keep. The sea wind sighed through the open window, and the city's lights shimmered like stars. Yet she could not sleep. Illyrio's words echoed in her mind, mingling with her own guilt and grief. At last she rose and crossed to the balcony. The moon hung low over the water, pale as bone. She took the ruby from her pouch and held it up to the light. For a moment it glimmered faintly, a single spark of red within the darkness. "Rhaegar," she whispered, "if any gods still listen, let your dream not die with you." Below, the harbor slept, and far out on the sea, lightning flickered beyond the horizon. She did not know then whether it was the herald of another storm or the birth of something new, but she felt it, the stirring of fate, the whisper of wings unseen. Elenya turned from the balcony and drew the curtains against the dawn. Tomorrow, she would decide whether to accept the Magister's protection or vanish into the east on her own. Whatever she chose, she would no longer be a shadow of the past. She would live, and in living, she would keep the last ember of her house alive. The dragons might sleep, but their blood still dreamed of fire. The days that followed passed in uneasy quiet. Pentos glittered like a mirage around Elenya, full of perfumed air and treacherous calm. She walked through markets where the language changed with every step, where spiced wines flowed like rivers, and men in jeweled robes whispered of wars across the narrow sea. Yet for all its splendor, the city was a cage, and she its wary bird. Illyrio's servants shadowed her wherever she went, smiling and bowing, their courtesy as soft and cold as silk drawn across a blade. Each dawn she climbed to the roof of the Magister's manse, from which she could see the distant sea, a mirror of blue and gold. She thought of Westeros then, the Red Keep's towers, the smell of rain over the trident, the faces of the dead. Rhaegar, her uncle, Jaime, all of them ghosts now. Sometimes she spoke to them beneath her breath, as though the wind might carry her words across the water. It never did. One morning, as she stood upon the parapet, Illyrio joined her. His steps were soft, but the faint scent of cinnamon always betrayed him. "You watch the west again, princess," he said, folding his hands. "Do you still hope to see dragons flying there?" "I see only smoke," she replied, "and a crown built from bones." He smiled, indulgent. "All crowns are such things, but bones may yet grow into a body. Westeros is restless. Robert Baratheon feasts while his lords sharpen their knives. Even lions sleep uneasy when surrounded by wolves and stags." She turned to him. "You speak as though you mean to stir them." Illyrio spread his hands. "I am but a merchant, my lady. I stir only what profits me. Yet in time, every merchant must choose what to trade in, gold or glory." Elenya looked past him, her eyes on the horizon. "And which do you trade in?" He chuckled. "Both, if fortune allows." Then, more softly, "There are still those of your blood who live, far to the east, across deserts and mountains. 2 children, born in exile, your kin. They are young yet, but the world already whispers their names. Daenerys, Viserys. Her heart leapt at the words. They live? So my birds tell me. Illyrio's smile was thin. They are under protection, hidden until the time is ripe. The blood of the dragon endures, princess. It is the way of fire. It cannot die, only change shape. That night, she could not sleep. She lay awake, the stars bright through the open lattice, listening to the hum of the city below. Somewhere, across the vastness of the east, her kin lived, children, innocent still. The thought brought both comfort and dread. The same fire that gave them life had destroyed everything she loved. Before dawn, she rose and went to the harbor. The sky was the color of bruised violet, the waves dark and restless. Ships rocked at anchor, their sails furled tight. She walked to the end of the pier where the sea met the mist, and breathed deep the salt air. For the first time in many months, she felt something like purpose stirring within her, a fragile ember glowing beneath the ashes of grief. When she returned, Illyrio awaited her in the courtyard, his expression unreadable. "You mean to leave," he said simply. "I cannot stay here," she replied. "You have shown me kindness, but my place is not among merchants in silk. My blood binds me to more than safety." He inclined his head. "Then take this." From within his sleeve he drew a small bundle, wrapped in crimson cloth. "A map, a letter of passage, and gold enough to see you through to Braavos or beyond. Consider it a gift, from one exile to another." Olenna took it, surprised by the weight. "Why help me?" Illyrio smiled faintly. "Because someday the world will need dragons again, and I am not fool enough to smother the spark before it burns." She left that same evening, slipping through the city gates as the sun dipped low. Her horse was a lean gray mare, its tack plain. She rode east along the coastal road, where the wind smelled of salt and thyme. The path wound between vineyards and marble villas, their windows glowing like lanterns in the dusk. By nightfall, Pentos was only a shimmer of light behind her. Days turned to weeks. She followed the road through quiet fishing villages and sun-baked plains, always keeping to herself, always moving east. Once she passed a caravan bound for Volantis, merchants with elephants and cages of bright birds, and they hailed her with laughter and song. But she kept her hood drawn, unwilling to share her name. When storms came, she found shelter beneath stone arches or the hollow of old trees. When food grew scarce, she hunted what she could. The hardships did not break her, they honed her. Each mile carried her further from the ghost of the girl she had been, the princess who sought peace between lions and dragons. That girl had died on the trident beside her cousin. At last, after many weary days, the river Rhoyne spread before her, vast and glittering beneath the sun. She followed its course south, toward the sea once more. Along its banks rose ancient ruins older than the Seven Kingdoms, fallen columns and broken statues, their faces worn smooth by time. She thought of Valyria then, and of the doom that had swallowed it, fire and pride, endless as the sea. One night she camped beside the water, the stars mirrored in its dark surface. She held the ruby in her hand, the last trace of Rhaegar's light. "I will not let you fade," she whispered to it. "Not while breath remains in me." A voice spoke from the shadows. "Then you carry the dragon's curse." She rose swiftly, drawing her dagger. A figure stepped into the firelight. An old man in a brown cloak, his beard white as snow. "Peace, princess," he said. "I mean no harm. I have followed you since Pentos." "Who are you?" "Once I was called Meister Orwyn of Dragonstone. I served your mother's kin before the war." Olenna's heart quickened. Why follow me now? To serve again, he said. I saw your uncle's madness and your cousin's death, yet I also saw what remained after, the hunger in men's hearts, the emptiness where hope should be. The realm will bleed anew sooner or later. When it does, someone must remind them that fire can heal as well as destroy. He looked into the flames, his eyes reflecting their light. You can be that reminder if you choose. The blood of the dragon flows in you, strong and unbroken. The world will not remember your name now, but it will someday. Olenna felt the wind shift, cold and strange. The fire crackled, sparks rising into the dark. I do not seek thrones, she said, only to live. Then live, Orwyn replied, and in living, become what you were meant to be. He left before dawn, vanishing into the mist like a ghost. She watched him go, wondering if he had been real at all. When the sun rose, she saddled her horse and turned east once more. The river flowed beside her, whispering of distant lands. Somewhere beyond lay the children of her house, the last of her kin. She would find them, in time. She would see that the dragon's song did not die. As the day brightened, she glanced back only once. The west lay hidden beyond the horizon, lost in haze and memory. Ahead stretched the endless road and the promise of new fire. She spurred her horse forward, the wind catching her cloak like wings. And so the tale of Olenna Targaryen, the lamb who entered the lion's den, passed into legend, unwritten, unsung, but alive. For though kingdoms fall and crowns turn to dust, fire remembers. It waits in the blood of the few who still dare to dream. And somewhere in the east, beneath the rising sun, the dragons dreamed with her.